Hi, my name is Mr. Harris and welcome to GCSE History. This is a very brief introduction and it's for students and parents that miss the taster sessions. It is just a very brief summary of what we offer as a course at GCSE History, and for any Year 9 students wanting to find anything else about it, obviously they can contact their history teachers directly via email. As you can see there, we've got 4 topics that we study, which I will talk about in length a little bit later. But all you need to do is just go slide by slide, and there should be information on each slide about why you study history, how you are examined in history, the different topics, and what consists of those topics, and so on. Okay, so why study history? Just a reminder that on these PowerPoint slides, if you are playing the slideshow version, just keep pressing the enter key and each fact or piece of information will come down one at a time. So history is very practical because it involves learning about new people. So we look at how people interact, their motives and emotions, that can tear people apart in rival factions or help them work together for a common cause. We also learn about countries, societies and cultures. Many of today's conflicts and alliances have their roots in the past. We also learn to locate and sift facts, so we identify truth and recognise myth, propaganda and downright lies. It's in the news quite a bit at the minute. We like to present what we've learnt in a way that makes sense to others. So whether in graphs, essays, illustrated reports, it isn't just extended writing. There's lots of different sort of diagrams that we do use, lots of different picture sources, for example. All these skills are valuable in a whole range of jobs. So instead of only looking at careers in history, you could also look at careers where it will help a lot if you've studied history. So what sort of skills will you get from studying history? Well, history teaches us to ask 2 very important questions: why and how. This is key to sharpening your critical thinking abilities, which combine the following skills. So we look at analysis, so how to analyze certain things. We look at research skills. We look at essay writing or extended writing. We look at communication, so whether that's communicating with a teacher, it could be communicating with your peers, it could be communicating in a different way, especially we need to do that minute with remote learning. Problem solving, argumentation. So historians look at all the available evidence and come to conclusions, a lot like a good detective, which helps them learn to be organised and manage information. I know I mentioned earlier just about careers in history, but in terms of job prospects, when I did my history degree, I didn't really have a kind of a career that was kind of obviously going to go down, but there are lots of different job prospects available. So you don't have to make that choice now, but it could be that you look at research and heritage. It could be law. Could be a job in the museum sector, education sector. It could be media. It could be journalism, for example. It could be marketing, advertising, public relations. There's lots of different kind of roles out there, and there's a lot of famous people, which we'll look at in the next slide, that have obviously studied history at GCSE, A level, and degree level. So in year 9, you currently study the wider world history topic, and I'm hoping that this will help prepare students for year 10 and year 11. So for example, in year 9 you study cause of World War One, World War One, cause of World War Two, World War Two, the Holocaust, and so on, a little bit on the Cold War, etc. But this will prepare you for the Key Stage 4 curriculum. So when you get to year 10, year 11, a lot of the topics, for example, Germany 1890 to 1945 and the Cold War, will be quite familiar. Here is a testimonial from one of the year 11s that I currently teach, and she wrote down a few words just about why she chose history and why it's important. She said, "I honestly really like and enjoy learning history. I'm so glad I chose it as an option in year 8, especially since the job of choosing a GCSE can be a difficult thing. I think one reason I chose it was because learning about new people and the societies they lived in. This really links and shapes how and why we live today. One benefit has been being able to identify motives for different people and writing detailed explanations, which is an important skill to be able to have, especially in further education, which is why I'm considering studying history at college. So in GCSE history, we ask questions about the past. This helps us understand the world today. So for example, it could be, we look at why did war break out in 1939, that a lot of Year 9s are currently studying and asking. We could ask, why did the Cold War start? We could ask, how did life change under Norman rule after 1066? We may ask, what was life like in Nazi Germany? What was life like behind the Iron Curtain? Why was there a missile crisis in Cuba? And why did we not know about germs until the late 19th century? So again, if you are on a slideshow, if you just click the enter key twice, and there should be 4 colours that come up with the 4 different topics that we study at GCSE history. So the current GCSE course is made up of paper 1 and paper 2. And paper 1 is Germany, so it's understanding the modern world, which is a 2-hour exam. 1 hour is made up of Germany 1890 to 1945, which we'll discuss in a few seconds. The second topic is conflict and tension between East and West, 1949 to 1972, and people may know this as the Cold War. Paper 2 is known as Shaping the Nation, and again it's a 2-hour exam, so we get an hour on Britain, health and the people, so the year 1000 to present day, and the Norman invasion, which is 1066 to around 1100. Here's an example of some of the exam questions that you could get asked, obviously at the end of year 11 in your GCSE exams. As you can see, there are 4 questions to the health paper, and this is in paper 2. When you look at paper 1 and paper 2 combined, obviously there's lots of questions, but I thought I'd give you a little snippet of some of the questions that you could get asked. So for example, question 1 is a source question, that's 8 marks. Question 2 is just an explain question for 8 marks. Question 3, again, it's a comparison, but it's an explain comparison question for 8 marks. And then question 4 is just a knowledge question, and again, you're going to be explaining. So there's 16 marks for your answer, and then there's 4 for spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So all you need to do here is just keep clicking the enter key, and it will show you a series of images, and these are some of the topics that come up on the Germany 1890 to 1945 course. And some of those examples are, we start in 1890, we look at Kaiser Wilhelm, we look at Germany before World War One, we also look at Germany during World War One. Then we look at the aftermath of World War One, looking at the Treaty of Versailles. We look at political uprisings. Then we move into the 1920s after hyperinflation and the invasion of the Ruhr. And we look at recovery through Gustav Stresemann. Then we get to 1929, and after 1929, after the Wall Street crash, we get the Great Depression, which affects Germany greatly. Then we get the rise of Hitler and the Nazis. Then we look at life under the Nazis, we look at how it affects young people, we look at how it affects women, Jewish people, and so on. We look at the economy, and then this runs right up to the Second World War, and we look at the war years and how the war affects Germany, well, I should say the Second World War, how that affects Germany, all the way up to Hitler's death in 1945. So the next topic is conflict and tension, or the Cold War. So we look at 1945 to 1972. We don't go right to the end of the Cold War because the course only runs to 72. So we go all the way up to a thing called détente. So if you look at some of the images here, so we start off with 1945. We look at the end of the Second World War. We look at the Yalta and Potsdam conferences, the dropping of the atomic bombs. We look at Stalin's expansion through Eastern Europe and his buffer zone. We look at the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan. We then head in towards the end of the 1940s, the end of the origins, after Churchill said his Iron Curtain speech. And then we look at the Berlin blockade and airlift. Then in the 1950s, there's obviously developments in Asia with China turning communist. In 1949, then we get the Treaty of Friendship. We look at the Korean War. We look at the Vietnam War. Then there's Hungarian uprising. There's lots of other events towards the end of the 1950s. Then we get in the 1960s the building of the Berlin Wall. We get the Cuban Missile Crisis, and obviously before that is the Bay of Pigs. We look at different reigns of kind of presidents, and obviously on both sides, USA and in the Soviet Union. And it runs all the way through the 1960s with the Prague Spring in '68, and then we get Détente, which finishes the course for around 1972. Then moving on to paper 2, we look at health and the people. So again, to keep pressing the enter key, and there'll be lots and lots of pictures that you will probably be very familiar with in recent times. So we kind of look at medicine through time, or it's known as health and the people. So we start off looking at Galen and Hippocrates. We look at kind of natural and supernatural beliefs in the Middle Ages. A lot of people believe that disease was kind of like caused through bad smells, which is known as miasma, and this isn't disproven until the 1860s. So we've got about 860 years that we teach where people believe that it's bad smells that are making people poorly, and people don't believe in germs. There's lots and lots of different individuals that we look at. We look at Vesalius, for example. We look at Edward Jenner. The next task on the next slide is focused on Edward Jenner. Then we look at obviously pandemics, epidemics, things like this. We look at Black Death, Great Plague, for example. We look at Florence Nightingale. There's lots and lots of things, and it runs all the way up to the 20th century and all the way up to present day, really, because 20th century we look at the liberal reforms, so introduction of free school meals, old age pensions, for example. Then we look at the creation of the National Health Service in 1948, and I think that's probably one of the most important things to be studying right now, especially with what's happening in the world, and the reason that I'm actually recording this lesson for you remotely. And in terms of the NHS and the vaccination, we're going to move on to the next slide, and I will carry on this recording. And then our final unit, which you will probably complete midway through year 11, is Norman England. So you studied this in year 7 when you're looking at the Norman Conquest. So obviously this includes the contenders to the throne in 1066, the death of Edward the Confessor. We look at the Battle of Stamford Bridge and the Battle of Hastings, so William the Conqueror becoming victorious. But then we look at how William establishes control in England. So we look at castles, for example. We look at the feudal system, cathedrals, the Tower of London. Then he established control through the Domesday Book, and then we look at his relationship and other kings' relationships with the church and how the Normans changed the kind of church system. So again, this we always teach this towards the end of year 11, because we feel that when you're a little bit older, you can obviously acknowledge some of the terms that you use in this, but you should have a good grasp of what the kind of course is all about, because you studied it in year 7. So that's what the course offers you. So all we need to know is, what do we expect from you as students? So there will be weekly knowledge quizzes and practice exam questions, which will be set by the class teacher. You will receive structured revision schedules before mini tests, big tests and progress exams. You need to be prepared to work hard in class and at home. This is an academic subject, and you'll be expected to learn a large amount of knowledge and be able to write about it. You'll be required to complete extended writing most lessons, which will normally be exam style questions. But remember what I said before, you will do some really nice tasks as well. You will design posters, you will look at cartoons. There's lots and lots of different tasks and different skills that you will be using during this course over the 2-year period. So all we ask from you is to be confident in your approach to every lesson and share your ideas. So that's the end of this narrated PowerPoint. I'm hoping it has been beneficial to anybody who has missed a live lesson. Please feel free to contact any of the history staff via email. All students should have access to their emails to send an email to their teacher. And in the meantime, just make sure that all Teams work is completed. And again, this will put you in good stead for GCSE history. So I'm hoping that you choose history, and I'm hoping that you've got a good understanding of what the subject is all about from this PowerPoint. Thank you.